Hello, guys. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Pancake Talks, this humble podcast that we started to showcase the greatest builders of the ecosystem, the greatest partners we have here in PancakeSwap, or the next partners we are going to have. I'm Chefran, PancakeSwap's community manager, and I will be the host today. I have to say that I also miss my partner Annie. If you're watching this, I miss you, man. Hope you're doing really really well. And let's see, we haven't done this for I think almost 1 month. We were super busy with the Infinity launch and any other upgrades we have been working on. So sorry for not bringing you new episodes. So let's hope we can do it. We have already another one in the pipeline. So let's see if we can keep on with the tracking. It's like we are so back. So let me introduce the partner for today. I have to say it's a great friend of the house. We have been talking already. Also, we did an AMA together, I think 1 month ago or something, and we have been planning this for some weeks. So it's really really nice to have him here today. So let's give a warm welcome to Tristan from Vaulta Finance. And if you don't know Vaulta Finance, it's they're rebranding from EOS Network. So let's ask him a little bit more about that. Hey Tristan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Can you hear me well?
Perfect. I can hear you perfectly.
Awesome.
Well, as always, I do the same question. I see you have your camera on, so I think you won't have any problem to dox you a little bit. So give you let's ask just for a quick introduction who you are, and the most interesting question is how did you end up in this rabbit hole we call crypto?
Yeah, so very happy. So great to be on this StreamYard and to talk to the PancakeSwap community. I'm really excited about that. I'm Tristan Dickinson. I'm the CMO for Vaulta Foundation. How did I get into this crazy world? I was actually working at a bank at the time. So it was about 2016. I was familiar, I guess, to a very high extent in terms of I understand that Bitcoin can be used for something, but I didn't really understand anything about it, to be honest. I just heard it in conversation. And then actually a friend of mine that I used to have lunch with started to educate me more on blockchain, on Bitcoin. I remember Coinbase was my first exchange account. I think they had 5 tokens that you could purchase. I think it was Ethereum, Bitcoin, XLM, Litecoin, and something else. So quite a long time ago. Started to degen a little bit, go down the rabbit hole, start to learn a little bit more. Went through a few cycles, got burned a bit like we all have, made mistakes, learned from those mistakes. And then, we fast forward to now, and hopefully this is our 3rd cycle. Hopefully we're entering into an extended bull run. And then been working professionally for about 3 years, and previous to that, banking and fintech and airline and a bunch of different industries. But crypto is the craziest, but also the funnest to work in.
I think you mentioned it. I want to just point 2 things that you have just said. First, it's like that you started to dig into with a coworker in the lunch, and I remember I have not the same experience, but really similar. There is a friend of mine called Martin, which was a coworker of mine when I was working on a healthcare company doing HR and that stuff. And we used the lunchtime just to talk about business and just to talk about crazy ideas we had just to start our own business. And at some moment, crypto appeared and we went crazy and started to talk about, and all the lunches were the same. It's like the other people, they were like, no, they are just mad. They go to lunch, they sit together and start brainstorming stupid ideas. And here we are now. So I remember those times with really good memories, and I assume you also the same when you start.
Warm memories. Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much.
And the other part, it's like make mistakes and get burned, like we all have. Yeah, I think you won't find anyone in this ecosystem who didn't get burned at some point.
It's the only way to learn, to be honest. It does sting at the time, but the more that you interact with crypto or blockchain in whatever way, shape, or form, the more that you can learn and the more you understand. So whilst it sucks, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. And there is a saying. I'm a Spanish native speaker. I'm from Argentina, and there is a saying in Spanish that says, "Who gets burned by milk sees a cow and cries."
I love it. What an interesting saying. Very true. I love it.
So that happens when I see things like Luna Crash or something. It's like, no, 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 please don't get me to those times again, please.
Well,
But
yeah,
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 it's a path of learning.
exactly, man.
Okay, let's get to the point.
Cool.
I know Vaulta emerged from EOS. I would like if you can walk through that transition and what prompted the shift to a Web3 banking focus in this year, and if you have learned any lessons from the previous rebranding to now and in this new direction you are taking.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So I think in terms of context around kind of why rebrand and why now for 2025. So to an extent, the network already rebranded in 2021. So the network was launched, I think, 2016, 2017 by a different company. In 2021, the block producers got together and said, we want to get the network and ecosystem back on track. We're not necessarily happy with the stewardship that's managing the network right now. We're not happy with some of the deliverables. The development is not where we want it to be. So the block producers got together, banded together, and said enough is enough. The previous company needs to exit the ecosystem. The token allocation gets taken away from them. And then you kind of fast forward to Yves LaRose and Zach Gall, who founded EOS Network Foundation, and foundations, as we know, are non-for-profit. Yves was previously a block producer, so he understood the technological side of the network really well. And so they created the foundation, and then they launched, I guess to an extent, relaunched the network, build out a foundation team, which is very heavy, full of developers. Then off the back of that as well, it's a little bit like a typical sub-DAO structure. So you've got the foundation, which is EOS Network Foundation. Now it's called Vaulta Foundation. Then we also have a labs spun up, so Vaulta Labs. Then you have a venture arm, so Vaulta Ventures. And then you have a middleware bucket, which is really there for user onboarding and to improve the user journey and user flow. So from that point of view, it's a bit like a sub-DAO structure, but that was all really new. Except the thing that hadn't changed was the name. So the name was the same. Completely new company, completely new structure. The fully decentralized nature of the network, where all decisions are made by 21 block producers. The next step to that is really, rebranding in totality, including the name. But just rebranding for namesake doesn't really hold value. So why wait till 2025? So in the background, the network had actually been moving towards laying the foundations for Web3 banking for the past couple of years. So foundations come in kind of two forms, technology and product point of view, and I'll talk about those. So from a technology point of view, Vaulta is actually a highly performant blockchain. So it's extremely reliable. It's never had downtime. So I think that's over 6.5 years. It's very customizable. We can get into this, but it's highly customizable, which is really necessary for banks. But you essentially can create virtual chains within chains. So it's a little bit like Cosmos from that point of view, where anyone that deploys from the network is like their own virtual chain that can create their own rules. It's secure. But what it was really missing until the back end of last year was speed. So transaction speeds were about 4 minutes. Now, if you think about finance and banking, 4 minutes is too slow. So the back end of last year, around September, was the latest hard fork. And that brought about, the Savannah consensus algorithm. Sure, we have a name for everything, but that just brought about speed. It took, the network from 4 minutes in terms of the block time and transaction time down to 1 second. So 2 blocks per block is about 0.5 seconds. That was really important. So from a technology point of view, customizability, yes. Security, yes. Reliability, absolutely. Now speed. Okay, good. Technology is ready. What about the product suite? So from a product suite point of view, Vaulta does have partnerships and ecosystem partnerships, and we can discuss some of these. But then also XSAT. So XSAT Network is a Bitcoin scaling solution and provides Bitcoin digital banking services. was actually only ideated last February and then launched on mainnet last October. So really fast from ideation to mainnet. And then off the back of that as well, after you launch on mainnet, there's a period of time when it can take a couple of months where you need to work through different challenges that you might have with launching a new project. There's always, interesting things to work through as you gather feedback from users, but then also to get more users and to gain more traction in the market. So XApp provides a significant amount of the product suite, which is very relevant for banks. So if you think about Bitcoin staking, restaking, diversified yields, and we can touch on some of these things later, that was really important to have that up and running, but also functioning smoothly. And then as well, Vaulta has partnered with several different companies. And so your technology is ready, and then your product suite is ready, particularly this gateway to Bitcoin, which we can touch on a little bit later. What's the last thing that you need to look at? Well, that comes in from a macro market point of view or a global point of view. Whether you like Trump or not, I think that's not really the point. But what he has done is, since he was the inauguration and since he's come on board, is just pave a way for companies in the US that are crypto companies to be able to, do their normal operations and not have to offshore everything. But then B, he's really provided a framework with which institutions and banks can, to an extent, safely enter into crypto. Now, there is still some work that needs to be done in terms of these regulations and, some guidance, but he really opened the doors. And then from a macro point of view, there's a lot more interest. So I think if you say you're a Web3 banking network, in March 2024, probably doesn't have as much impact as now. So technology ready, product suite ready, macros ready. Therefore, we decided to rebrand on the 19th of March, and we've seen a lot of positive feedback on this and a lot of interest. So right time, right place, right technology, right product.
Yeah, it feels like, as you are telling us, the rebranding was a no-brainer, right? It's something that you change this, you change that, you change another part, and you said, okay, we need to rebrand because we are not even the same as 3 weeks ago. I mean, the rebranding is innovative, impossible to avoid.
Yeah, exactly. And the rebrand is also very much about internally for the past couple of years, the focus has been Web3 banking, but with rebranding, with Vaulta, with the token ticker changing from EOS to A, which we can touch on, we're planting a flag in the ground and saying Web3 banking is the focus for the ecosystem. These 4 pillars that I can see you've kind of shared in the background here, this is how we're going to focus development and business development. And we've gone out to market and says, this is what we are, this is what we're striving to be, and this is what we're working towards.
Nice. So your mission seems to be about, basically, if we can put it for the people that are new to crypto or wants to have the too long didn't read, would be bridging traditional finance with decentralized assets. It's like merging those two words, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's an important mission that we have. And really, what does that come down to? A lot of it is trying to solve some real world problems. I think crypto in total terms has kind of, to an extent, and this has changed drastically within the past couple of years, but crypto has solved crypto problems. But really, when you get into what are some real life or real world problems, that's really where banking is ever present. If you think about your bank, it's innate with everything you do. When you go to the grocery store, when you transfer, when you do a cross-border transfer, the bank that you use is a part of your everyday life. So some of the ways at the moment that we're solving real world problems, there is also some stuff which is coming out over the next couple of weeks. I think we mentioned this before, Chef, but XAT is major sponsors of Bitcoin conference. There's some announcements coming up. One of the partnerships that I want to talk through quickly in terms of kind of this real world problem is with Virgo Group to launch Virgo Pay. So Virgo Pay is a cross-border payment solution, basically on and off ramp with fiat, and then in between you send via staples. So if we think about what that's like from a user point of view, one other thing that's relevant is at first in phase 1, it's support for 6 countries: US, Canada, Australia, Hong Kong, Brazil, and Argentina. So let's use the example, Chef, because you're from Argentina. I'm in Argentina right now. I decide that I would like to earn a higher wage and go to the US and see if there are better possibilities. Maybe it's inflation, maybe I got a job offer, maybe it's whatever it might be. But I'm also going to the US because, I want to bring some of that benefit back to my family who still lives in Argentina. So the challenge that you currently have is you might use a Western Union and it could take 3 to 5 days, and it could be really expensive.
Yeah, and the
So
rates are horrible. Yeah.
they're terrible, and the exchange rates aren't good, and it's almost like a scary process. I've done it a few times, and it's almost weird to say you don't know if what you send is going to arrive. So it's not good. It's a huge industry. I mean, Ripple dominates the industry, and they've done a fantastic job for crypto in general, but particularly in this, they want to overtake Swift, and that's great. But it's a $167 trillion industry, so it's a large industry. And so for this example, I want to send back to Argentina, Western Union. It's challenging. Using Virgo Pay, I can send back to my family within a minute. So that really solves a big challenge that people have, and that should launch Virgo Pay within the next couple of weeks, which will be great. But that really solves some of these cross-border payment challenges. I think another thing as well, which is quite important, is we talk about democratizing financial access, and that's a big part of Web3 banking from our point of view. So I'd mentioned it before, but I previously worked at a bank, and banks have wealth management arms. So for that wealth management arm, it's pretty good if you're wealthy. If you have about $1 million in assets, you can turn that $1 million into maybe 1.5 or 1.25 or whatever the number might be. But there are fees and there are requirements. And so me as a user, a consumer without $1 million, I don't really have, the possibility to, in our sense from a crypto point of view, earn yield. So to bring that to life, we partnered with Cefu last year. Cefu is a custodian. They actually have a solution with Binance called MirrorX. So what you do is you open up a custody account with Cefu, you can mirror those assets onto Binance, and then you can actually earn from different trading strategies, delta neutral, diversified yield, sure. There's a few different options you have. What we'd like to do with this partnership is, as the end state, be able to open that up to retail users. So let's use us as an example, Chef. We band together with another 30 different community members. We have EOS, which is now called A, but I think for ease, we call it EOS. We put our EOS together. We're able to hit the requirements to activate quantitative traders because quants aren't cheap, right? And then we can actually earn yields on our asset. And we can earn yield, maybe it's yield in BTC, or maybe it's yield in ETH, or maybe you just want yield in EOS or A. So this is one way that we want to democratize financial access and kind of take the concept of what you can get in wealth management from a bank point of view, but make that available for everyone from a retail point of view. One other quick thing that I'll talk about, and then happy to move on, but we've partnered with a company called Blockchain Insurance Inc. So again, let's use us as an example, Chef. Let's go back to a couple of years when we were sitting down at lunch and talking about crypto. We decide we want to start a crypto project. We're really excited for it. We go to a bank, we get a bank account. Typically, they'll ask you, what about your insurance? So you go, okay, I'm going to go get insurance. You go to an insurance provider, and they say, what field or what industry do you work in? And you say, digital assets. They go, risky. Okay, your premium is anywhere from 3 to 5 times higher. Maybe it's 4 times higher, but it's a lot higher than it should be. And so that's challenging for us. We're a new project. We don't have revenue. There are several things that we need to work through before we can even entertain having really high premiums for insurance. So Blockchain Insurance Inc. is the first blockchain project that's got captive insurance engineered towards blockchain projects. So you get insurance that doesn't have these 4 times premiums, and it's actually adapted towards the model that suits projects. So it suits you as a blockchain project. Because if you go to a normal insurance provider, they won't really understand the difference between a DEX or a layer 1. Blockchain Insurance Inc. is captive blockchain insurance that's suited towards blockchain projects. So that really solves a real world need. There are other things in terms of tokenization and in the future RWA and commodities. But as I mentioned, in terms of kind of planting that flag, if you think about banking, it is really innate in everything you do. So in the future, it's very much moving towards a world where, I guess if you take the Revolut model, you might want to buy Bitcoin, that's good. Maybe it's the infrastructure for Vaulta that you leverage. So Virgo Pay is an example. Vaulta is the default transaction and settlement layer. So maybe when you buy that Bitcoin or whatever digital asset, then it's Vaulta that you do it with. Or maybe you just stake Bitcoin and you can stake Bitcoin with XAT. Or maybe you've got a different product suite where banks might say, I'm happy to tack on your insurance to one of our offerings. So we have some real world problems we're solving now, but very much the direction of the network is to focus on a lot more diverse real world problems.
Nice, nice. I love to see those kind of bridges between Web 2 and Web 3. And in Web 2, in terms of banking, I think you have been facing a lot of challenges, obstacles, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of stuff that really hard stuff that when you compare with crypto, it's like I cannot even realize what I'm doing this if in crypto I can do it in 3 seconds, and now I have to fill thousands of papers or get signed here and there just to move my money or just to get an approval for something. So I really think maybe sometimes I feel like a little bit old fashioned because I don't believe in projects that are not trying to solve a real life problem. Could be totally, I don't know, a DeFi problem or a Web 2 problem or in this case, a bridging solution. But I think these things are really needed instead of memes or instead of things that have no intrinsic value. But that's only my perspective. So
I think, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Well, I think. Sorry, I just heard something in my microphone. But I think on that note, the market is also catching up to what you're mentioning. I think the meme coin mania is starting to die down a little bit. It was really big. There's always going to be a place for meme coins. I feel like maybe sometimes I can be a bit disparaging towards meme coins, but they do play a role in the industry. And some of the larger ones do have utility in the form of trading. But I do think the market's starting to catch up to the sense that, wait, maybe fundamentals are important. Maybe not everything is just about price. Maybe meme coins, aren't the best thing in the world to invest in. You're basically, to an extent, playing roulette with meme coins. If you hit your number, and you're lucky. Most of the time, you don't. 1 in 36 chance or 37 chance for roulette. It's a lot harder for meme coins. You have to be there at the right time, in the right day, with the right people, and have the right knowledge. So I think, to echo your point, Chef, I think the industry, by and large, and retail and institutions are starting to catch up to, well, maybe fundamentals are really important. Maybe not. It's not just about making a quick dollar. Maybe it's really about solving some real challenges that there are.
Yeah, as you said, those narratives have their own space, and it's good. But we don't need to forget what makes crypto what it is, like a solution for financial freedom and for all the use cases you have been mentioning, like sending money abroad. I mean, the usually stupid stuff that we don't care until we care. It's like safety and crypto security. You don't care until you actually care. And that's where the problem starts. When you need to send money abroad and you get 10% commissions or whatever, it's like when you said, oh, maybe the system is not as good as I thought. And Vaulta comes, a lot of projects comes. So I really like, or maybe I'm being I'm some kind of Grinch about memes and that stuff, but I tend to get more excited when I see people trying to solve these real problems. Like, could be my mom's problem if I live abroad. I don't know, but instead of just trying to speculation as the top of it, because it's a part of it, but I don't think it's not the thing that I wake up every morning saying, oh, I really want to build. I don't know if you get what I mean.
I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and it's true. And I think, as an industry as a whole, we're really moving towards solving some big real world challenges. And I think banking, from my point of view, is that next step. If I think about banking, it's gone through several revolutions. Probably the most recent one is the introduction of the internet. Now, I read a stat the other day that 50% of people globally use internet banking. I'd assume that would be a little bit higher. Maybe it's dependent on what country. But now I couldn't imagine banking without the internet. I couldn't imagine going to a physical bank and having to draw money out. Web3 will have that same experience. It won't be a revolution, it'll be an evolution. So what we're talking about before, Chef, in terms of 3 to 5 days for a cross-border transfer and these ridiculous fees, well, with Web3 that can happen in a minute, and the fees can be minimal. So I think that's going to enhance the experience, and that's what humans really gravitate towards. It's why Apple is, the largest company in the world. The first thing they focused on was make the experience good. And I think banks did a great job utilizing the internet, but I think Web3 is the next step that all banks are going to take, because what do we want? We want experience. We want something that we don't think about, something that's easy.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for me, for you, and everyone building in this space. I mean, the experience is quite a hot topic, and I got myself into spaces the other day, and there was a person from crypto. It's in Satoshi protocol, I think, and he was telling me that when he started making a swap, for example, in PancakeSwap or any other DEX, was super hard to them. And I said, I realized things that for me are super easy, like making a swap in PancakeSwap, in Uniswap, at any DEX. It's easy because I do it all the time. But I put myself in the shoes of, for example, one of my friends, and no matter that seems to be easy, it's not. So it's like a thing that keeps me running in my head. It's like we need to make the experience even more easy. I mean, it's like the internet. You don't care anything about the DNS behind. You don't care anything about behind the scenes. No. How internet works. I don't care. I mean, or maybe I care because I'm kind of geek, but I'm trying to put myself at the normal user base. They enter they open their browser, they put, I don't know, Google, YouTube, whatever, and they enter. That's it. No matter what happened behind. And same should happen in Web3. I mean, why I need to explain to my friend that there are 10 different types of USDC, depending if you are in Ethereum, in BNB chain, or in Base. I mean, they don't care, and they shouldn't care. We need to try to take care of that. And same with the banking.
We've got a ways to go as an industry, to be honest. I mean, passkey and solutions like this help, but you're right. What is easy for us, because we've done it so many times, is actually really hard. So we've got a rooms to grow. We're still a very young industry, and that makes me excited. I think I read something the other day where you can equate it to, I guess, the progress that the internet had in around 2000s, but our progress is happening much faster. But we still have a long way to go, because the average person doesn't care about swapping on a DEX. They don't even know what a decentralized exchange is. They just know that they saw the name of a coin, probably Bitcoin, and they want to buy it. And they don't want to have to figure out in between, well, what delineation of Bitcoin is it? Is it on the Bitcoin native network? Is it a WBTC? They just want to buy the asset and hold it.
Yeah, exactly. I find myself sometimes in a bar talking to a person. Hey, in which industry do you work? No, I work in crypto. Oh, there is a scam, and you need to start explaining, and it's a lot. And you said, then you come to your house and say, we are super early, and we have a lot of things to do. And Argentina is quite a crypto hub, and I live in Buenos Aires, which is a super big city. And I can go to a grocery store and I can take 10 people and maybe one knows about crypto, and if I'm lucky.
We're early, and that makes me happy, to be honest. We are a little bit, I'm not going to say greedy, but as an industry, we want everything to happen yesterday. The speed we're moving is amazing, but we're so early, and we've got so much room to grow. And I'll be very interested, Chef, to have the same conversation in 2, 3, 4. I mean, we can do it in a couple months, whenever, but in a couple of years from now, it'll be very fascinating to see where Vaulta, Pancake, but also as an ecosystem, where we're at.
Yeah, Michael Taylor will have 50 of the Bitcoins.
Yeah, he'll be in the...
by that time.
Yeah, he'll have 10% of the supply. Love it.
Since you mentioned Bitcoin, I had some really technical questions, but I think we are not getting into that. It feels better to maybe stay a little bit on the ground. But you mentioned Bitcoin, and I would like to know how do you integrate Bitcoin in the Vaulta service, and what Bitcoin do you think it play in this new bridging Web2, Web3 solution? I mean, it's the most commented, or I don't know, what role Bitcoin plays in your day-to-day working style?
A significant role is the answer to that. So from my point of view, and I think from a lot of people's point of view, Bitcoin is king. It kind of always has been, and to an extent it always will be. It's the largest ecosystem. It's also the largest market share. It's fully decentralized. It's what, to an extent, it's what the majority of people know. If you talk about crypto, they will know Bitcoin. So it's really key in terms of awareness. It's key in terms of the size of the ecosystem, and it's key in terms of, we've seen the ETF positivity. I think it's 50, 60 billion since it launched, one of the most successful ETFs ever. But it also has challenges, the Bitcoin ecosystem, and those challenges very much come around scalability, because the purpose of Bitcoin was more about a store of value as opposed to value creation. Now we're starting to want to create value out of Bitcoin. And so you have challenges. The native network, 60 minutes for finality. To what we were talking about earlier, Chef, I have made a mistake sending on the native network, sent to the wrong address. It didn't come through. It was a challenge. That was very nerve-wracking. But even if it does come through, an hour for finality is crazy, and 10 minutes for a transaction time. So that's really where XSAT was ideated after, or ideated based out of. So XSAT, as I mentioned before, it's a Bitcoin scaling solution and provides Bitcoin digital banking services. And really what the thinking behind it was Bitcoin is a large ecosystem. It's got a lot of room to go, but it's got some really big problems with scalability. So how do we address these scalability issues? So the stance that the network took, when I say the network, XSAT, was to look at what's one of the most valuable parts, Bitcoin's data. It's called UTXO data. Are we able to place that data on chain in a data availability layer that people can query, read, or write to? And if we are able to do that, what consensus mechanism needs to be put behind it to make sure that this data is accurate? But then equally as important, what partners do you need to partner with to make sure that this data is accurate? So that data availability layer is actually called RAM. It's a data availability layer that Vaulta ecosystem has. It's a really important data availability layer. It's fast, it's customizable, it's reliable. Probably the most important part is it's got an economy behind it. So it's to overtake the network, you need about 23 million. So that's really important. If the economy behind it was $1,000, then you can open yourself up to attack vectors. So that was really important in terms of Vaulta has RAM, this data availability layer. XSAT needs this data availability layer to put Bitcoin's UTXO data on chain. It's 170 million rows. It's about 106 gigabytes. It was tracked back to the Genesis block. And right now it's block for block. So as soon as a block is mined on the native network, it's then synchronized on our network. And that kind of leads into, well, what consensus mechanism do you need to enable both security and scalability? And then what partners? So XSAT has a dual consensus mechanism, POW and POS. POW comes in the form of what partners? Well, who's more accurate than the Bitcoin miners themselves? So we've got some of the largest Bitcoin miners via BTC, Antpool, Spiderpool, and a few others. The hash rate's about 50%, and the goal is to get it up to 80%. These guys are the ones mining blocks, and then they synchronize that data on the network. So who's more reliable or it's got more accurate data than the miners? The answer is not really anyone. Cool. It's good that they've done that. How do you scale? And that's where POS comes in. It's what POS is really good at, but also POS plays a role in terms of validation. So we've got XSAT's got about 70 plus data validators, and they're there to validate these blocks and transactions and make sure that it's accurate. But then very much for us as an end user point of view, we want to earn rewards. So this POS then opens you up to Bitcoin staking via XSAT, and the APY is anywhere from 5 to 10%. So stake Bitcoin, earn XSAT, the native token. Also, then it kind of gives birth to restaking and then a bunch of different Bitcoin DeFi tactics and C DeFi. So that's a little bit about XSAT. How does that apply to banking? If you think about banks to an extent, they will be looking at digital assets and looking at crypto. They'll be looking at it really in three forms. One of the forms, which is the most boring, which is the biggest unlock in my opinion, is just classifying it as an asset. Imagine a world in a couple of years from now, Chef, where I go to get life insurance, I travel, I have a family, I want to make sure that they're safe, but my asset portfolio or part of my wealth, 70, 80% of it might sit in crypto, right? I go to this insurance provider and they say, tell me what your wage is and tell me what you've got in savings. You're like, well, it's this and this, but I've got all of this. Is it digital assets? No, that's not relevant. So your life insurance amount or premium is lower than what it should be. Or maybe when it comes to buying a home loan or a house, sorry, you take a home loan and they say, we need you to provide us a 20% deposit in fiat. Funny to call it fiat, but in cash, right? You go, well, I don't have fiat, but I do have half a Bitcoin. And they're like, well, we don't classify that. So banks starting to classify digital asset as an asset class is important. The next thing is from a product point of view. The next thing is from an infrastructure point of view. So if you talk about products, they're obviously aware of Bitcoin. They're familiar with it. That's where XAT really neatly plugs in. Do you want to enable custody first? Sure. The next thing you start to look at is what about yield on that custody? I want to stake Bitcoin. XAT can easily plug into this. Or I want to earn a different strategy. You can see that Coinbase brought out a product where you can earn, I think it's cash and carry, and the APY is about 4 to 8%. So XAT has been working on something very similar to that. So from a banking point of view, they can provide necessary product suite. Also from an infrastructure point of view, from a settlement layer, being backed by Bitcoin, from a security point of view, and then having the scalability that you need to be able to function as a settlement layer where you can handle transactions extremely fast. So Bitcoin is incredibly important for banking. XAT really plugs a hole in the Bitcoin ecosystem in terms of scalability. And the goal is really to become the transport layer for Bitcoin and Bitcoin finance. So from that point of view, Bitcoin's incredibly important to banking. XAT network plays a huge role in being able to scale Bitcoin, and to become that transport layer, you need to have applicability in products and use cases. And then we've seen some really significant growth for XAT. The TVL is over about 700 million. It's one of the largest Bitcoin-based projects, but it's also a bit of a proof of concept for Vaulta's infrastructure. It's actually a virtual chain that runs on top of Vaulta mainnet, and then it's forked off Vaulta EVM. So it is compatible with other ecosystems, shares the same benefits that I mentioned before in terms of that reliability, stability, cost, but then speed, but then also very neatly plugs into the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Oh, impressive. And it's really nice to see that you have at least sorted a little bit of the speed and the scalability, since it's, we always talk about the security that Bitcoin gives, but in terms of scalability and speed, and in this case, you need the speed as one of the top priorities with the security layer. So it's really nice to see how you are sorting it out. And also it's another use case for Bitcoin. So yeah.
It is.
Some reasons that remains Bitcoin at the king of this ecosystem. No matter that in DeFi, some of the folks sees not as the king, but yeah, I think the thing, it is what it is sometimes.
It is what it is, and I think one of the most important things for Bitcoiners or the Bitcoin ecosystem is actually the ideological nature of it. If you take a step back and think about Bitcoin, it's pretty cool. Kind of was born out of the 2008 financial crisis, because traditional finance, it is a little bit shady to an extent. It doesn't necessarily benefit consumers. It was born out of that. The original creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that person, girl, man, individual, group, whatever, no longer runs the network to an extent, I guess you could say that. No one knows who he is. Created this fully decentralized blockchain ecosystem that is now, in the next 5 years, in my opinion, going to have the same market cap as gold. And so it's really, really cool. And so the ideological nature out of it is important. And that was another thing I think for XAT, which was key to it. It actually stands for Extend Satoshi. And part of that comes from the tokenomics model. It's identical to Bitcoin. So 21 million halving periods, but there's no pre-mining or no pre-allocation. That's probably the biggest part. So whilst you can be in the Bitcoin ecosystem, if you don't have that ideological alignment to Bitcoin, I don't think you've got a good chance to succeed in the long term. And long term could be 5, 10, 20 years. So that was another really important part to XAT. But then another really important part just in terms of aligning ideologies.
Okay, you mentioned, I think we have been talking a lot. It's a lot of information, really, really interesting and really exciting. And I want some leaks, and I hope the community wants it too. So, what's in the roadmap? What is in the pipeline for Vaulta in the next, I don't know, 6 months, 2 years? You can put the time frame you mostly like. Tell me what you are most excited about. Just let us know. We are all ears.
So I can't drop necessarily any alpha or leaks today. What I can say is there's a lot going on in the ecosystem. So both Vaulta and XAT have very, very busy development teams. They constantly ship new products, new features, new integrations. Business development teams are also extremely active. That's really important from a partnership and integration point of view. XAT is actually a major sponsor, as I mentioned, at Bitcoin conference. There will be some partnership announcements. Vaulta also has partnership announcements and big announcements coming up. So stay tuned for those in the coming weeks and coming months. But then let's get a little bit more specific just in terms of some, I guess you could call it high-level roadmap items. So we will publish a roadmap within the next 3 to 6 weeks, which will provide enough detail for people when they want to go into lots of different elements. But a lot of the roadmap is engineered around improving experience or improving technology or building out a product suite. So some of the things to talk through is like MPC wallets, just makes it easier for users or institutions to interact with Vaulta without necessarily worrying about private keys. Going back to our earlier point, Chef, in terms of the challenges that you face in our industry, private keys can be one of them, right? It can be a little bit cumbersome to have, as opposed to what we're used to now, I guess, which is logging in with my Google account everywhere. 2 clicks, it's done. I don't have to think about new passwords. So MPC wallets, we think, will be a big unlock. Optimizations to that data availability layer, RAM. Another thing called passkey-based wallet logins. So it's kind of biometric and common kind of account login support. Really doubling down on this cross-border payment solution with Virgo Pay. So once that's live, gathering information, data, and then expanding the stablecoin options. Right now it's USDC and USDT. XAT just recently kind of upgraded their consensus model. So not only can you stake Bitcoin, you can stake XAT. There will be BTC mirror vaults where you can earn different strategies, similar to what I mentioned for Coinbase. This will be similar in the sense of maybe it's cash and carry, maybe delta neutral, maybe there are other trading initiatives. Some kind of native to EVM token transfers, the potential for an XAT credit card, multi-auth wallet login, a lot of movement in terms of a compliance layer and kind of a token extensions framework, cross VM token launcher, RWA yield vaults, and then banking OS APIs. And these are just some of the things that are coming out within the next 3 to 6 months. But really with that kind of end goal and that flag in the ground to say we are a Web3 banking network. A big focus is to work with crypto banks, neobanks, and then larger banks. So from a product point of view, we're very much getting ourselves to a stage where you can offer multiple products, and that's how it's easier to onboard banks. I mentioned before I worked at a bank previously, quite a large bank, and very much banks have their own individual needs. They have needs that they need to be fulfilled. So they're not necessarily going to go to Ripple as an example and say, I want you to be the infrastructure provider for all of our services. When it comes to bank, core banking is something they don't touch because it's private or sensitive information. But they will see a need and say, maybe I can work on this specific use case using this part of blockchain technology to improve an experience. And then if that's good, maybe we can scale it to more of the product suite. One example to bring that to life is Revolut recently announced a partnership with Lightning Network. Now that was a specific need that they had, and they saw a technology that could help solve that need. So that's what we're very busy working on, is working with crypto, neo, larger banks as well to identify what the needs are and then be able to plug those needs from a product and infrastructure point of view.
Nice, nice. And I also imagine that those steps, I mean, we do like flash steps, and Web2 banking do like dinosaur steps. I'm not saying that's wrong, but it takes too long for a new step. Each step should be higher and more heavy, but it takes, I assume it takes a lot of calls, a lot of meetings, a lot of time. It's like delivering something from traditional banking. I mean, I came from a healthcare company, and each step was
It
like
takes time.
6 to 1 month to 1 year in the best case scenarios. Like, and at the end of the day, it was like a normal. If you compare with a startup or with a new company, each step we did, it was like trying to get back to the 2020 again. It's like we were like in the 1970 or something,
Yeah.
or it felt like that. So I can imagine that bankings are mostly the same.
Yeah, and it takes time. And I mean, I was, I guess, a little bit salty when I first started working at the bank to realize like why are we moving so slow? And at its core, it's because they want to protect people and they're heavily regulated. So
Yeah.
those regulation and protection go hand in hand, and it's something that us as an industry have always asked for. But you can see with Mika to an extent, right? Be cautious what you ask for because regulations are good and they can be good, but my God, with Mika it can be restrictive. And to the
Yeah.
point you're mentioning, it can slow things down. So we're in a little bit of this middle ground of there are regulations, there aren't. We're figuring out stuff, but yeah, to your point, it takes time, and that's okay, because it's not just about partnering with neobanks, banks, and crypto banks. It's also about partnering with other ecosystems, and in our example, very much deepening your opportunities from a DeFi point of view in the BNB or BSC ecosystems. So the BNB or BSC DeFi ecosystems, we have a really big focus, and that's why we've worked closely with you guys, Chef, and then we'll continue to work closely in the ecosystem to provide users with options. So you can envision a world in the future where there is, A, BSC, A, and then with that, I want to be able to add that to a vault. So maybe I want to, lend it towards a vault, and then I want to borrow BNB. Then I want to use that BNB to go to listed DAO, and then I want to engage in, liquid staking, which I get X% APY, and then I want to use that Sliss BNB and add it to a pool on Euler Finance, and to an extent do loop staking. And then in the background as well, I want to, engage in liquidity mining or earn via PancakeSwap. And so, whilst the focus very much is towards banks, it's also very much about expanding. So it's not just our DeFi ecosystem. We tap into the biggest DeFi ecosystems. And the Binance Smart Chain or BNB chain ecosystem is huge. So that's also a really big and important focus for us.
Nice. Yeah, and also it's in one of the best moments since the DeFi summer in terms of TPL and also volume. So it's real. I'm not saying this just because Pancake Club, it's almost hometown in BNB chain, but also it's really nice to see that the whole blockchain is gaining some traction in this moment that we have like 10,000 different L2s and different blockchains, and sometimes you keep thinking why we need so much that are not
Yeah.
interconnected between each other. I think that's another thing we need to solve as ecosystem, like to put ourselves one day and say we need to unify, maybe with cross-chain swaps, cross-chain liquidity, whatever. But when I need to explain why we have 300 different blockchains, it's really difficult when the other person doesn't know anything and says why, and I don't have the answer yet.
It's a good point, and I think I kind of equated it a little bit to email, right? So imagine, Chef, if you have Outlook and I have Gmail. The way that we typically run in crypto is I cannot send you an email because you're not compatible with it, right? And to your point around the internet, I don't care what's going on. I just want to send Chef communication and he communicates back to me. I don't give a shit he's on Outlook. I don't care that I'm on Gmail. There will be solutions, and I know there are ones people working on, but once we solve some of this interoperability challenges, that will be a massive unlock. And that will be, to your point, Chef, you won't have to explain why there's 300 L2s. It'll just be who do I use from a fundamental point of view, from a real world applicability point of view?
Yeah, completely. I think sometimes in crypto, our brains, our values, I mean, our inside flames goes beyond the real problems. It's like when you hear some founders or some really brains from some of these L2s or maybe from crypto in general, it's like there are person with a lot of perspective, there are person with a lot of internal values, there are person with a lot of really altruism ideas. But when you try to transform those ideas, I mean, you hear them and they are amazing, they are great, they are really great thinkers of the world. But when you try to put that down to the real world problems, like the ones we were talking about, like sending money abroad or whatever, it's like are not compatible. You need to have uh, some space to turn around your ideas sometimes if you want real use cases. I mean, in theory, there are things that works completely. It's like, I don't know, ways of living. I don't know. I don't know if you like The Simpsons. Homer says once in one episode, like socialism works in theory, works. It's like when you put things to the real world, you realize sometimes some things doesn't completely work. And I feel the same sometimes with the real high value thoughts on crypto. It's like on the theory it all works. When you put it into practice, you feel like you need to, I don't know, sex or dex. I mean, both works. I mean, I love DeFi. I love being completely
In control,
in charge of my own assets. But are everyone prepared for that? I think no, and it's okay. I mean, I will always go for the decentralized finance. But if you come and tell me, my mom tells me, I'm not prepared because I will lose my funds, and I will say, okay, for you it's the centralized world. You can live with both worlds working together for the same end. Then we can have our differences or whatever, and we can sit down and try to avoid those differences or try to polish a little bit. But at the end of the day, we are all trying to make this work.
Totally. And I think that brings up a point in terms of choice. You and me, more DeFi, we want control of our asset, right? And that's really important to us, but we're also familiar with how to utilize DeFi and the different complexities associated. For new entrants onboarding, they don't know what DeFi is. They don't care about decentralized finance. They just have a need. I want to own an asset. And then you kind of could educate them, well, be careful of the sex for these reasons. But for them, it's like, whatever. Yeah. I have something that I want to do, and let me do it. And I think that's a really important part of the growth that I think we're going to experience in the next 5 to 10 years. It's not about pigeonholing people into forcing them to make a decision. It's about giving them choice. You want DeFi? Sure. You want CeFi? Sure. You want a centralized option that's safer? Here you go. You want a decentralized option where you're in control the whole time? Here you go. And I think that is another big unlock. Definitely how we as an ecosystem think about the product suite or the technology is give people choice. But I think as an industry as a whole, that will start to be something which is a lot more ever present. It'll be a little bit less about, to an extent, sex bashing because FTX, fucked up. Sure, FTX had challenges, but all businesses have challenges. If you look at TradFi, it's not like they're squeaky clean. So it's not about this is good or that's bad. It's just here are different options for you. And if you want an easier onboarding here, if you want a slightly more challenging that you can maintain control, here's your option.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And okay, we have been talking for around 1 hour. So just as a clean and nice wrap up of our conversation, I just would like to ask you if any of the people hearing this want to get involved with Vaulta, what's the one easy way they can get involved? And a final comment for you for all the listeners today.
I'm not sure that there's necessarily one easy way. I think there's a few easy ways you can stake A token, it's now called. We just did the swap yesterday from EOS to A, and we've got working with a lot of exchanges to support this and da da da. But you can stake the token at about a 14% APY. Also, you can be a part of our PancakeSwap LM pools, so you can earn. I think the swap APR is currently about 100%. Then via XSAT, you can stake Bitcoin, restake Bitcoin. You can game on Ultra for Virgo Pay once that launches. You can, send cross-border payments between the countries I mentioned. Let's say you send it from the US to Argentina, or one DEX. The DEX that was recently launched. You can trade unique pairs. So there are a lot of different things you can do in the ecosystem, but we're really rapidly building out options. What we mentioned before is we want to give people choice. So a CDFi offering, a DeFi offering, a Bitcoin ecosystem offering, a Vaulta offering, a Binance Smart Chain to an extent offering. You're going to start to see more and more ways to engage in the network. And I guess to an extent, we see ourselves a little bit like a portal. People will come to us and say, I don't want to buy the token, or I'm not interested in Bitcoin, or I just want to come to you guys because I heard about Blockchain Insurance Inc. Come to the website, takes you off to Blockchain Insurance Inc., and there you go. You can take up your insurance. So those are some ways you can engage with us. In the future, there will continue to be a lot more ways. I guess in terms of final message, I really do feel like, and the ecosystem feels like the next evolution in finance is Web3, but we're so early. We're really, really early. As we're early in crypto, this Web3 evolution for finance is still extremely early. And I really feel like Vaulta is at the forefront of that. The uniqueness of the tech stack means that banks are very favorable towards, okay, you're reliable. Reliability is king for banks. Then they'll look at security. Are you secure? Sure. Then they're going to look at customizability. Can we set custom parameters that suit what our requirements are? And the answers to that are yes. And then really from a Bitcoin point of view as well, as XSAT has the goal to become the transport layer for Bitcoin, similar to USDT and Tron to that extent. So from that point of view, we're very early in terms of Web3 banking and Web3 really evolving the financial system. And then it's extremely unique in terms of having a Bitcoin project that's able to provide Bitcoin services and Bitcoin digital banking services. So we're really excited. Stay tuned. You can follow us on X at Vaulta_, or on TG, it's Vaulta. But we've got a lot of announcements, a lot of partnerships, and you will see XSAT everywhere in 2 weeks at Bitcoin conference. And then also from a Binance Smart Chain point of view, we'll continue to work closely with you guys and more partners, so we can give the Pancake community and then other BSC-based community members different options and choice. But thank you very much, Chef. I've loved joining this and the StreamYard, and would love to join it again one day.
Nice. Finally, we could do it after a lot of going back and forward with the time and the schedule. So I really enjoyed this chat today. Yeah, it was really, really nice, and I want to thank everyone for staying 1 hour with us, and invite you in the next couple of months, so you can come and let us know, or maybe a little bit more anytime you will need to share more updates in this journey you have been celebrating every day, and same for us. So let's see if we can gather another time in the future. And thank you all for tuning in. This will keep recorded in YouTube. So in case you miss it or you want to send it to a friend, feel free to do it in our PancakeSwap official Twitter, YouTube account. In Twitter also, but in Twitter gets buried by the rest of the feed tweets. So thank you again, Tristan. I hope we can gather more often. It was a really, really nice talk. So have a nice rest of the day. And
thank you very much,
all the listeners. See you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Tune in again.